Minji Park stood on the frozen lake and checked her equipment one more time. The ice stretched out in every direction, white and endless under the gray March sky. She had been working alone all morning, drilling small holes and measuring the thickness of the ice. This was her job as an environmental researcher, and she loved it, even when the work was cold and difficult. She looked at her watch. It was almost noon. Her research team was in Anchorage for a conference, but Minji had chosen to stay behind. There was so much work to do, and she felt confident working by herself. She had done this many times before. The weather forecast had predicted clear skies for the entire day. Everything seemed perfect. Minji walked back to her snowmobile and pulled out her lunch. She ate quickly, her gloved hands fumbling with the wrapper of her sandwich. The temperature was about 10 degrees below zero, which was normal for this part of Alaska in early March. She had dressed in layers, wearing thermal underwear, fleece, and a thick winter coat. Her face was protected by a warm mask and goggles. After lunch, she decided to check 3 more measurement points before heading back to base camp. Base camp was only 3 miles away, an easy 15-minute ride on her snowmobile. She started the engine and headed toward the next location. The snowmobile's engine hummed steadily as she crossed the frozen lake. But then something changed. Minji noticed the sky growing darker. She looked up and saw thick clouds rolling in from the north. They moved fast, much faster than normal clouds. Her stomach tightened with worry. This was not part of the forecast. Within minutes, the wind picked up. It started as a gentle breeze, then grew stronger and stronger. Snow began to fall, light at first, then heavier. Minji made a quick decision. She needed to get back to base camp right away. She turned her snowmobile around and headed in the direction of safety. The wind grew violent. Snow swirled around her in thick sheets. She could barely see 5 feet in front of her face. This was a whiteout, one of the most dangerous weather conditions in Alaska. The world became a wall of white. She could not see the ground, the sky, or anything around her. Everything was just white. Minji slowed down, afraid of crashing into something hidden in the snow. She tried to stay calm. She had her GPS device. She pulled it out and checked the screen. The device showed her location and the direction to base camp. She felt a small sense of relief. Technology would guide her home. But then disaster struck. The snowmobile hit something under the snow, probably a chunk of ice or a frozen rock. The engine made a terrible grinding noise and then stopped completely. Minji tried to restart it. She turned the key again and again. The engine would not start. Her heart began to pound in her chest. She climbed off the snowmobile and looked at the engine. Even with her mechanical knowledge, she could see that something important was broken. Oil leaked onto the white snow, making a dark stain. She could not fix this. Not here, not in a blizzard. Minji reached for her radio. She pressed the button and spoke into it. "Base camp, this is Minji. I have an emergency. My snowmobile is broken and I'm caught in a storm. Can anyone hear me?" Static crackled through the radio. She tried again. "Base camp, please respond. This is Minji Park. I need help." More static. The storm was interfering with the radio signal. No one could hear her. She was alone. Minji forced herself to think clearly. Panic would not help her survive. She had emergency training for situations like this. First rule, find shelter. She could not stay in the open. The wind was already making her body temperature drop, even with all her warm clothing. She looked around, trying to see through the blowing snow. To her left, she spotted dark shapes. She walked toward them, pulling her broken snowmobile behind her. The shapes became clearer. They were rocks, large boulders sticking up through the ice. Near the rocks, the wind had created a small depression in the snow, a natural dip in the ground. This would have to do. Minji pulled her emergency kit from the snowmobile. Every researcher in Alaska carried an emergency kit. Inside were items that could save a life: a small tent, emergency blankets, waterproof matches, energy bars, water purification tablets, a first aid kit, and chemical hand warmers. She worked quickly, her fingers already getting numb. She set up the small tent in the depression, using the rocks as a windbreak. The tent was meant for emergencies, not comfort. It was tiny, barely big enough for one person to lie down, but it would protect her from the wind. Once inside, Minji sealed the entrance and activated 2 hand warmers. She placed them inside her gloves. The chemical reaction made them hot, warming her frozen fingers. She wrapped herself in the emergency blankets, which were made of special material that reflected body heat back to the person. She checked her supplies. She had 6 energy bars, a small amount of water, and the purification tablets. She could melt snow for drinking water. She calculated in her head. If she was careful, these supplies might last 2 days, maybe 3 if she really stretched them. Minji tried the radio again. Still nothing but static. She checked her cell phone even though she knew there was no signal out here. The screen showed no bars. She was completely cut off from the outside world. The wind howled outside her tent. The temperature continued to drop. Minji could hear the tent fabric snapping in the violent gusts. She curled up inside her emergency blankets and tried to stay warm. Her research training had prepared her for many things, but not for this. Not for being completely stranded in one of the worst storms she had ever seen. She thought about her team back in Anchorage. They would not expect her to check in until tomorrow morning. Even then, they might not worry right away. They might think she was just busy with her work. It could be a full day before anyone realized she was missing. By then, this storm could have covered all traces of her location. Minji thought about her family in Seoul, her mother, her father, her younger brother. They worried about her working in such a dangerous place. She had always told them she would be safe, that she was careful, that she knew what she was doing. Now she wondered if she had been too confident. The storm raged on. Night was coming. Minji ate 1 energy bar slowly, making it last. She knew she needed to conserve her food. She did not know how long she would be out here. The temperature outside was dropping to 30 degrees below zero. Inside her tiny shelter it was still very cold, but survivable. She forced herself to stay awake for as long as possible. Sleep in extreme cold could be dangerous, but eventually exhaustion took over. Minji closed her eyes and drifted into an uneasy sleep, the sound of the wind filling her dreams with images of ice and endless snow. 20 miles away from where Minji fought for survival, a military transport plane landed at Fort Wainwright, a remote military base in Alaska. The plane's door opened, and Cena stepped out onto the cold tarmac. He wore a thick winter jacket and smiled despite the freezing temperature. He was here for something important. Cena had come to Alaska for a USO visit. The USO was an organization that brought entertainment and support to military troops. Cena had done many of these visits over the years. He loved meeting soldiers, especially those stationed in difficult and isolated places. These men and women served their country far from home, often in harsh conditions. The least he could do was spend time with them and show them that people appreciated their service. A base commander, Colonel Martinez, greeted him with a firm handshake. "Mr. Cena, welcome to Fort Wainwright. The troops are really excited to meet you. Please call me John," Cena said warmly. "And I'm the one who's honored to be here. Thank you for having me." The colonel led him into the base. Despite the remote location and harsh weather, the base was well maintained. Soldiers walked between buildings, their breath creating small clouds in the cold air. Many of them stopped and stared when they saw Cena. Word traveled fast on a military base. Within minutes, everyone knew that a celebrity was visiting. The first event was a meet and greet in the base recreation center. Hundreds of soldiers gathered, waiting to shake hands with Cena and take photos. He spent hours talking to each person, asking about their lives, their families, their experiences in the military. He never rushed. Each soldier got his full attention. A young private, barely 20 years old, stood in line nervously. When his turn came, he could barely speak. "Mr. Cena, I've watched you since I was a kid. You inspired me to never give up." Cena put his hand on the young man's shoulder. "You're the one who inspires me. You're out here serving your country in one of the toughest places on earth. That takes real courage." The private's eyes filled with tears. He shook Cena's hand and walked away with a huge smile on his face. After the meet and greet, Colonel Martinez invited Cena to dinner with the base leadership team. They sat in a small dining hall eating simple but hearty food. The conversation was relaxed and friendly. Cena asked questions about life on the base, about the challenges of serving in such a remote location. "One thing people don't realize," said a captain named Rodriguez, "is that we're not just soldiers here. Many of us are also volunteer search and rescue members for the local area." Cena leaned forward with interest. "Really? You do search and rescue on top of your military duties?" "Yes, sir," Rodriguez continued. "This part of Alaska is huge and mostly empty. When someone goes missing, we're often the closest help available. We work with local authorities and park services." "That's incredible," Cena said. "How often do you get called out?" "A few times a year," another officer said. "Hikers, hunters, researchers. People underestimate how dangerous this environment can be." Colonel Martinez's phone buzzed on the table. He looked at it, his expression growing serious. "Speaking of which, we just got an alert. A researcher has been reported missing." The table went quiet. Cena watched as the officers exchanged concerned looks. "What happened?" Cena asked. The colonel read from his phone. "Environmental researcher, 28 years old, didn't return to base camp today. Her team is at a conference and just realized she missed her scheduled check-in. Last known location was on a frozen lake about 20 miles from here." "When was she last seen?" Rodriguez asked. "Yesterday morning. She was planning to do field work and return by evening. But that storm hit earlier than expected." Everyone at the table knew what that meant. The storm had been brutal, one of the worst of the season. Anyone caught outside in it would be in serious trouble. "Can we send helicopters?" Cena asked. The colonel shook his head. "Not in these conditions. The storm is still going. We can't fly until it clears. Even then, visibility will be terrible for at least another day." Cena felt his chest tighten. Somewhere out there, a young woman was fighting for her life. Every hour that passed reduced her chances of survival. "What's her name?" he asked quietly. "Minji Park," the colonel answered. "She's part of a climate research team. Works for the university." The dinner continued, but the mood had changed. Everyone was thinking about the missing researcher. Cena found it hard to focus on his food. He kept imagining what she might be going through out there in the cold. After dinner, Cena couldn't sleep. He stood in his temporary quarters, looking out the window at the dark sky. The storm was finally beginning to ease. Snowflakes still fell, but not as heavily as before. He thought about his own life, his career, his success. He had everything, but what did any of it mean if he couldn't help someone in need? He had come to Alaska to support the troops, to boost morale. That was important, but now there was something else he could do, something more immediate and urgent. The next morning, Cena found Colonel Martinez in the command center. "I want to volunteer for the search party," he said directly. The colonel looked surprised. "Mr. Cena, that's very generous, but you don't have to do that. This isn't part of your scheduled visit. My publicist would probably—" "I don't care what my publicist thinks," Cena interrupted, but not rudely. "A woman is out there fighting for her life. You said the storm is clearing. You're sending out ground teams, right?" "Yes, as soon as conditions are safe enough." "Then I want to be on one of those teams. I'm in good physical shape. I can keep up, and I can follow orders. Put me to work." The colonel studied him carefully. This wasn't a publicity stunt. Cena was genuinely concerned about a stranger's life. Martinez respected that. "All right," the colonel said. "But you follow the team leader's instructions exactly. Search and rescue is dangerous work. We can't worry about keeping a celebrity safe while trying to find a missing person." "I understand completely," Cena said. "I'm just another pair of eyes and hands." By mid-morning, the storm had weakened enough for ground teams to mobilize. Cena joined a 6-person team led by Sergeant Kim, an experienced search and rescue specialist. The team included Rodriguez, 3 other soldiers, and now Cena. Sergeant Kim briefed everyone. The missing researcher's last known coordinates put her on the lake's eastern section. "We'll start there and expand our search grid. Temperature last night dropped to 30 below. If she doesn't have proper shelter, her survival chances decrease significantly after 72 hours. Cena listened carefully, absorbing every detail. He had faced many challenges in his life, in the wrestling ring and in his acting career. But this was different. This was real. A person's life depended on their success. The team geared up with cold weather equipment and loaded onto snowmobiles. Cena had never driven a snowmobile before, so he rode behind Rodriguez. They set out across the snow-covered terrain, heading toward the frozen lake. The landscape was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Everything was white. The sky was white. The ground was white. It was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. Cena understood now why whiteout conditions were so dangerous. Without clear landmarks, a person could get lost within minutes. They reached the lake and began their search pattern. The team moved systematically, covering ground in a grid formation. They looked for any sign of the missing researcher, tracks, equipment, anything out of place. Hours passed. They found nothing. The storm had covered everything with fresh snow. Any tracks or signs would be buried. Sergeant Kim called for a short break. The team gathered, drinking water and eating energy bars. Cena could see the worry on everyone's faces. Time was running out. What if we expand the search area? Cena suggested. Maybe she was farther out than expected. Kim considered this. It's possible. But we have to be strategic. We only have so much daylight left. What about the western part of the lake? Cena asked. Has anyone searched there? That's outside her last known position, Rodriguez said. We're focusing on the most likely areas first. But something in Cena's gut told him they should look everywhere. Sometimes the most unlikely place was exactly where someone would be found. He had learned that from his years of facing unexpected challenges. I think we should check it, he said firmly. I have a feeling. The team looked at each other, then at Sergeant Kim. The sergeant made a decision. All right. We'll head west. But if we don't find anything in the next 2 hours, we have to return to base before dark. They mounted their snowmobiles again and headed toward the western section of the lake. Cena held onto Rodriguez, his eyes scanning the white landscape. Somewhere out here, Minji Park was waiting to be found. Minji woke up on her second morning in the shelter feeling terrible. Her whole body ached from lying on the hard, cold ground. Her fingers and toes felt numb, even inside her gloves and boots. She knew this was a warning sign. Frostbite was beginning. She carefully removed one glove and looked at her hand. The fingertips were white and waxy looking. She had seen frostbite before in her training photos. This was the early stage. If she did not protect her hands better, she could lose her fingers. She put the glove back on quickly and activated another chemical hand warmer from her emergency kit. The storm was still going strong outside. The wind shook her tiny tent constantly. Snow had piled up against the sides, which actually helped insulate the shelter a bit. But the cold was relentless. It crept through every layer of clothing, every blanket. Minji's body was using all its energy just to stay warm. She ate half of an energy bar for breakfast. That left her with 4.5 bars remaining. She melted snow in her mouth for water, letting the ice slowly dissolve on her tongue. Drinking the melted snow made her even colder, but she needed hydration to survive. Minji tried the radio again. She had tried it several times during the night, hoping that the storm would clear enough for a signal to get through, but there was still nothing except static. She was beginning to accept that no one would hear her radio calls. No one knew exactly where she was. The storm had covered any tracks her snowmobile had made. Fear tried to creep into her mind. She could feel it at the edges of her thoughts trying to take control. She forced it away. Fear would not help her. She needed to think clearly. On the morning of the third day, something changed. Minji woke up and noticed the sound was different. The wind was quieter. She carefully unzipped the tent entrance and looked outside. The storm was finally weakening. Snow still fell, but not as heavily as before. She could see a little farther than yesterday. This might be her only chance. Minji remembered something she had read years ago in a survival manual. Pilots who crashed in remote areas often created visual signals to help searchers find them. They used contrasting colors against the snow. Dark materials showed up well against white backgrounds. She had materials. Her research equipment came in dark storage bags. She had her bright orange safety vest. If she could create a signal large enough, someone might see it from the air or from a distance. But the question was, did she have enough strength to do it? Minji's body was weak from cold and limited food. Every movement took enormous effort. Just getting out of the shelter made her dizzy. But she knew this might be her only opportunity. If the weather got worse again, she might not survive another night. She decided to try. First, she needed a plan. The signal had to be big enough to be seen from far away. The most recognizable distress signal was SOS. 3 letters, simple and universal. Minji pulled out all the dark materials she could find. The storage bags from her equipment, her dark blue backpack, extra clothing. She emptied everything from her snowmobile's cargo compartment. She also had her bright orange safety vest, which would contrast sharply against the dark materials and white snow. She paced out the measurements. Each letter would need to be about 20 feet tall to be visible from a distance. That meant the entire signal would be nearly 60 feet wide. It was a huge amount of work for someone in her condition. Minji started with the letter S. She laid out her dark storage bags in a curved line, creating the top curve of the S. Then she used rope from her emergency kit to help shape the middle curve and the bottom curve. It took her over an hour just to form one letter. Her hands were clumsy in the thick gloves. Several times she had to stop and rest, sitting in the snow, breathing hard. The wind had died down significantly now, which helped, but the temperature was still brutally cold. Minji's face was covered by her mask, but she could feel the cold burning her skin wherever it was exposed. After finishing the S, she moved on to the O. This was simpler, just a circle. She used more storage bags and her backpack to form the round shape. She placed her bright orange vest in the center of the O to make it even more visible. By the time she finished the O, Minji was exhausted. She sat down in the snow, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her vision was starting to blur. She knew these were signs of extreme fatigue and hypothermia. Her body was shutting down, but she could not stop now. She had come this far. One more letter. Just one more. Minji forced herself to stand up. Her legs shook beneath her. She gathered the remaining dark materials and started working on the final S. Her movements were slower now. Several times she dropped materials and had to pick them up with numb fingers. The simple act of bending over made her head spin. She thought about her family to keep herself going. She imagined her mother's face, her father's laugh, her brother's jokes. She thought about her research team, her friends, all the people who cared about her. She could not give up. Not when she was so close. The second S took even longer than the first. Minji had to stop and rest multiple times. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the snow. If she did not finish soon, darkness would come and she would have to return to her shelter. With her last bit of strength, Minji placed the final pieces of material. The signal was complete. 3 enormous letters stretched across the ice. SOS. She stood back and looked at her work. Even in her exhausted state, she felt a surge of pride. The letters were huge and clearly visible. The dark materials and orange vest stood out dramatically against the white snow. If anyone was searching for her, they could not miss this signal. But Minji also knew the hard truth. She had used almost all her energy to create this message. She barely had the strength to walk back to her shelter. Once she was there, she did not know if she would be able to move again. She stumbled back to her tent, dragging her feet through the snow. Each step was a monumental effort. Finally, she reached the shelter and collapsed inside. She pulled the emergency blankets around her body and lay there, too tired to even eat. Her mind drifted in and out of consciousness. She dreamed of warm places. Her childhood home in Seoul, summer days in the park, hot meals with her family. The dreams felt more real than the cold tent around her. At some point during the night, Minji woke up shivering violently. This was actually a good sign, she remembered from her training. When a person stopped shivering, that meant the body was giving up. As long as she was still shivering, she was still fighting. She ate another half of an energy bar, chewing slowly. That left her with only 3 bars. But it did not matter anymore. Either someone would find her signal tomorrow, or they would not. She had done everything she could. Minji looked at her hands in the dim light filtering through the tent. The frostbite had gotten worse. Her fingertips were dark now, not just white. She would probably lose some fingers if she survived. The thought made her sad, but not as sad as the thought of never seeing her family again. She tried the radio one more time. Static crackled, but then, for just a moment, she thought she heard something. A voice? She pressed the button and spoke into the radio. Hello? Can anyone hear me? This is Minji Park. I am stranded on the lake. I have created an SOS signal on the ice. Please, if anyone can hear me, I am here. She listened. Only static answered her. Maybe she had imagined the voice. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her. Minji lay back down and closed her eyes. She had done everything possible. She had fought with every bit of strength in her body. Now all she could do was wait and hope. Outside, the night was clear for the first time in 3 days. Stars appeared in the dark sky, brilliant and cold. The wind had stopped completely. The SOS signal lay on the ice, dark letters against white snow waiting to be seen. Minji drifted into sleep, her body curled into a tight ball for warmth. She dreamed of rescue. She dreamed of helicopters and voices calling her name. She dreamed of being warm again, but she did not know if those dreams would ever come true. She did not know that 20 miles away a team of searchers was preparing to expand their search grid. She did not know that a famous face was among them, determined not to give up. She did not know that her signal, created with her last reserves of strength, would soon be seen. All she could do was sleep and hope and hold on to life with everything she had left. The search team gathered at dawn on the third day after Minji's disappearance. The weather had finally cleared enough for safe travel. The sky was still gray, but the dangerous winds had stopped. Visibility had improved significantly. Cena stood with the team in the equipment room, getting ready for the day's search. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the missing researcher out there alone, cold, possibly injured. He kept thinking about what 72 hours in extreme cold would do to a human body. Sergeant Kim went over the plan one more time. "We'll divide into 2 teams. Alpha team will search the northern section of the lake. Bravo team, that's us, will take the western section. Each team has GPS trackers so we can coordinate our positions." Rodriguez checked his equipment carefully. Weather forecast says we have about 6 hours of decent conditions. After that, another storm system might move in. 6 hours. That was not much time to search such a huge area, but it was better than nothing. The teams loaded onto their snowmobiles. Cena rode with Rodriguez again. As they headed out across the snow-covered landscape, Cena felt a strange mix of determination and worry. He was not used to feeling helpless. In his career, he had always been in control. In the wrestling ring, success or failure depended on his own skills. In movies, he knew his lines and his actions would lead to the scripted outcome. But this was different. This was real life with real stakes. No script existed. No one could guarantee a happy ending. The team reached the lake and spread out in a search pattern. They moved slowly, carefully scanning the white expanse for any sign of the missing researcher. Cena's eyes hurt from staring at so much whiteness. Everything looked the same. Snow, more ice. An hour passed with no results. Then 2 hours. The team stopped briefly to rest and drink water. Everyone's face showed the same mixture of hope and growing concern. "How long can a person survive out here?" Cena asked Sergeant Kim. Kim answered honestly. "With proper shelter and supplies, maybe 5 or 6 days. Without them, maybe 2 or 3 days. We're at 72 hours now. That's the critical point." Cena nodded, processing this information. Every minute mattered. Every second counted. They continued searching. The western section of the lake was vast. The team covered ground methodically, but it felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. A very large, very white haystack. Another soldier, Private Chen, voiced what everyone was thinking. "Sir, should we consider that she might not have made it?" Sergeant Kim's voice was firm. "We keep searching until we find her or until conditions force us to stop. Every person deserves that effort." Cena respected that answer. These soldiers understood the value of never giving up, of fighting until the very end. It was a mindset he recognized from his own life. They searched a third hour. The sun climbed higher in the sky, though it remained hidden behind gray clouds. The temperature was still well below freezing, but at least the wind stayed calm. Rodriguez suddenly stopped his snowmobile. "Wait, look at that," everyone stopped. Rodriguez was pointing ahead, toward the southern edge of their search zone. Cena squinted, trying to see what had caught Rodriguez's attention. "What is it?" Sergeant Kim asked, pulling out his binoculars. "I see something. Dark shapes on the ice. They look arranged." Kim focused his binoculars in that direction. Several seconds of silence passed. Then Kim lowered the binoculars slowly, his expression changing. "It's a signal," he said quietly. Someone made a signal on the ice. The team immediately accelerated toward the location. As they got closer, the dark shapes became clearer. Cena could see them now without binoculars. 3 enormous letters made from dark materials. SOS. "She's alive," Rodriguez said. "Or she was alive recently enough to make this." The team's energy changed instantly. Hope replaced worry. They raced toward the signal, snowmobiles flying across the ice. As they approached, Cena could see how large the letters were. Each one was at least 20 feet tall. Someone had spent hours creating this message. Someone with determination and the will to survive. "Spread out," Sergeant Kim ordered. "Look for any sign of her. She has to be nearby. The team split up, searching the area around the SOS signal. Cena jumped off the snowmobile and walked carefully across the ice, his eyes scanning everything. Private Chen shouted from about 50 yards away. "Over here. I found something." Everyone rushed to Chen's location. There, partially hidden by a cluster of rocks, was a small tent covered in snow. Next to it was a broken snowmobile. Sergeant Kim approached the tent carefully. "Minji Park? Can you hear me? This is Sergeant Kim with Fort Wainwright Search and Rescue. We're here to help you." No response came from inside the tent. Kim looked at the team medic, Specialist Torres. "Be ready." Kim unzipped the tent entrance. Inside, wrapped in emergency blankets, was a small figure. Minji Park lay curled in a ball, not moving. "Is she?" Cena started to ask but could not finish the question. Torres quickly entered the tent and checked for vital signs. "She's alive. Pulse is weak but present. Body temperature is critically low. We need to warm her up immediately but carefully." The team went into action. They had done this before, but every second still felt urgent. Torres wrapped Minji in additional warming blankets while another soldier radioed for a medical helicopter. "Can we move her to a better location?" Kim asked. "Not yet," Torres said. "Moving her too quickly could cause cardiac arrest. We need to stabilize her first." Cena knelt by the tent entrance, watching Torres work. Minji's face was pale, almost blue. Her lips had no color. Frostbite darkened her fingertips. But she was breathing. She was alive. Torres continued the warming protocol, using chemical heat packs placed carefully on Minji's body core. "We need to warm the center of her body first. Arms and legs come later." Kim got an update on his radio. "Helicopter is 10 minutes out. Weather conditions are acceptable for extraction." Those 10 minutes felt like hours. Cena watched as Torres and another medic worked on Minji with practiced efficiency. They checked her vital signs constantly. They spoke to her even though she did not respond. "Minji, can you hear me?" Torres said gently. "You're safe now. We found you. You're going to be okay." No response.
Minji's eyes remained closed. Cena moved closer.
He did not know why, but he felt compelled to speak to her. "Minji, my name is John. We're here to help you. You did an amazing job creating that signal. That's how we found you. You saved yourself." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Minji's eyelids fluttered slightly. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. "She's trying to say something," Torres said. "Minji, don't try to talk. Save your energy. Just know that you're safe." But Minji's eyes opened slightly. They were unfocused, confused. She looked at the faces around her. Her gaze settled on Cena. Her eyes widened just a bit as if she recognized him but thought she must be dreaming. "Am I dead?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Cena felt his throat tighten with emotion. "No, you're very much alive. And you're tough as nails." A tiny smile appeared on Minji's face, then disappeared as she drifted back into semi-consciousness. The sound of helicopter blades filled the air. The medical helicopter landed about 100 yards away, unable to get closer due to the rocks. The team quickly prepared Minji for transport. "We need to carry her to the helicopter," Kim said. "Cena, Rodriguez, Chen, help me with the stretcher." They carefully moved Minji onto a portable stretcher, keeping her wrapped in the warming blankets. 4 of them lifted the stretcher and began walking carefully across the ice toward the helicopter. The helicopter's rotors created wind that blew snow around them. 2 flight medics jumped out and ran toward the team. They took over, checking Minji's condition and preparing her for the flight to the hospital. "Good work," one of the flight medics told Torres. "You probably saved her life with that warming protocol." Within minutes, Minji was loaded into the helicopter. The flight medics worked on her inside the aircraft while everyone else stepped back to a safe distance. Cena watched the helicopter take off, carrying Minji toward advanced medical care. He felt exhausted suddenly, as if all the tension of the last few hours was draining out of him at once. Sergeant Kim put a hand on Cena's shoulder. "That instinct of yours to check the western section, that saved her life. If we had stuck to the primary search grid, we might not have found her in time." Cena shook his head. "She saved herself. That signal she created took incredible strength and determination. All we did was show up." Rodriguez smiled. "That's more than just showing up, sir. You could have stayed at the base, but you chose to be out here searching. That matters." The team packed up their equipment and prepared to head back to base. As they rode across the frozen lake, Cena looked back at the SOS signal one more time. 3 simple letters that represented one woman's refusal to give up. He hoped she would make it. He hoped the hospital could help her. He wanted to visit her, to tell her in person how impressed he was by her courage. But for now all he could do was head back to base and wait for news. The search was over. Minji Park had been found. Now it was up to the doctors to finish what the search team had started. The helicopter raced through the gray sky toward Anchorage. Inside, the flight medics worked quickly on Minji. One medic, Sarah, monitored her vital signs while the other, Marcus, continued the careful warming process. Core temperature is 89 degrees. Sarah called out over the noise of the helicopter. That's severe hypothermia. Marcus placed more warming packs around Minji's torso. Heart rate is 40 beats per minute. Blood pressure is dangerously low. Minji drifted in and out of consciousness. When her eyes opened, everything seemed blurry and confusing. She heard voices but could not understand the words. She felt movement but did not know where she was. Was she still on the ice? Was this a dream? Minji, can you hear me? Sarah leaned close to her face. You're in a helicopter. We're taking you to the hospital. You're going to be okay. Minji tried to speak, but her mouth would not work properly. Her tongue felt thick and frozen. She managed only a weak sound. Don't try to talk, Marcus said gently. Just rest. Save your energy. The helicopter landed at Providence, Alaska Medical Center 20 minutes later. A trauma team waited on the roof. They had been briefed about the patient during the flight. Everyone knew their jobs. The helicopter doors opened and the team moved Minji quickly onto a hospital gurney. They rushed her inside through hallways and into a trauma bay. Doctors and nurses surrounded her immediately. Dr. Patricia Lee, an emergency medicine specialist, took charge. Let's get a full set of vitals. I want blood work, EKG, and imaging. Careful with movement. Hypothermia patients can develop cardiac arrest with rough handling. The team worked with practiced efficiency. They cut away Minji's frozen clothing. They attached monitors. Numbers appeared on screens telling the medical team what they needed to know. Core temperature confirmed at 89.2, a nurse reported. Heart rate 42. Blood pressure 70/40. Dr. Lee examined Minji's hands and feet. The frostbite damage was significant. The fingers and toes had turned dark purple and black in places. Get me the frostbite protocol. We need to do controlled rapid rewarming, and call the hyperbaric chamber team. She might need oxygen therapy to save these digits. More people entered the trauma bay. A team specializing in cold weather injuries arrived. They had experience treating frostbite and hypothermia, common problems in Alaska. Minji felt pressure on her arms as nurses inserted IVs. She felt warmth beginning to spread through her body as the medical team used advanced warming techniques. But with the warmth came pain. Terrible pain in her hands and feet. She moaned. Pain is actually a good sign, Dr. Lee said. It means there's still sensation in those areas. Give her something for the pain, but keep it moderate. I need her to be able to communicate if she wakes up more fully. Hours passed. The medical team worked continuously on Minji. They stabilized her heart rate. They brought her core temperature up slowly and carefully. Too fast could cause shock. Too slow risked more damage to her body. Meanwhile, back at Fort Wainwright, John Cena paced in the base recreation room. He could not sit still. Colonel Martinez had promised to call as soon as they received an update from the hospital. Rodriguez sat nearby, also waiting. She's in good hands now, he said. Providence has excellent doctors. I know, Cena replied. But I keep thinking about how close it was. Another few hours and we might not have found her in time. The phone rang. Martinez answered it, listened, then looked at Cena and Rodriguez. She's stable. Critical condition, but stable. They're working on treating the frostbite now. Cena felt relief wash over him. Can I visit her? Martinez nodded. The doctor said visitors would be okay once she's moved to a regular room. That should be in a few hours. At the hospital, Minji was finally beginning to wake up more fully. The pain medication helped, but she was still aware of the intense discomfort in her hands and feet. The warming process hurt worse than the cold had. Dr. Lee stood by her bedside. Minji, can you hear me? I'm Dr. Lee. You're at Providence, Alaska Medical Center. You were rescued from the lake. You're going to be okay. Minji's eyes focused on the doctor's face. My hands, she whispered. I know they hurt. We're treating the frostbite. You have significant damage to your fingers and toes. I won't lie to you. You might lose some of them, but we're doing everything we can to save as much tissue as possible. Tears rolled down Minji's cheeks. She was alive, which was more than she had dared to hope for. But the reality of permanent injury hit her hard. A nurse gently wiped her tears. "You're incredibly brave. The rescue team said you created a huge SOS signal on the ice. That's how they found you." Minji closed her eyes, remembering the effort it had taken. Every painful movement across the ice. Every piece of material she had placed. She had not been sure it would work. But it had, family, Minji whispered. "Call my family." "We already did," Dr. Lee said kindly. "Your parents in Seoul have been notified. Your mother is arranging a flight to come see you. She'll be here tomorrow." More tears came. Her mother was coming. Minji would see her family again. She had thought she never would. Several hours later, Minji was moved to a private room in the intensive care unit. Her condition had improved significantly. Her core temperature was back to normal. Her heart rate and blood pressure had stabilized. The immediate danger had passed, but the battle for her fingers and toes continued. The medical team used hyperbaric oxygen therapy, special medications, and careful monitoring. Some tissue could be saved. Some could not. That evening, a nurse came to Minji's room. "You have visitors. Are you up for seeing people?" Minji nodded weakly. She expected to see members of her research team. She was not prepared for who walked through the door. John Cena entered quietly, followed by Rodriguez and Sergeant Kim. They all looked tired but relieved. Minji stared at them. She recognized Cena immediately. Her brain struggled to make sense of this. Why was a famous celebrity in her hospital room? "Hi, Minji," Cena said softly. "I'm John. I was part of the search team that found you. I wanted to check on you, make sure you're okay. Is it all right that we're here?" Minji tried to sit up a bit. A nurse helped adjust her bed. You were really there? On the ice?" "I thought I was hallucinating." Cena smiled. "I was really there. These guys too." Sergeant Kim led the search team. "Rodriguez spotted your SOS signal first." "Thank you," Minji said, her voice cracking with emotion. "All of you. You saved my life." Kim shook his head. "You saved yourself. That signal you created was extraordinary. We were searching the wrong area. If you hadn't made that signal, we might not have found you. How did you—" Minji looked at Cena, confused. "Why were you there?" Cena pulled a chair close to her bed and sat down. "I was at the base for a USO visit. When I heard someone was missing, I asked if I could help with the search. These soldiers were kind enough to let me tag along." "But you didn't have to do that," Minji said. "You could have just done your visit and left." "I couldn't do that," Cena replied simply. "Someone needed help." "How could I not try?" Rodriguez added. "He kept pushing us to expand the search area. That's how we ended up in the western section where you were." They talked for a while. Minji learned about the search, about how the teams had worked for hours looking for her. She told them about her experience, about the storm, about creating the signal with the last of her strength. "I really thought I was going to die," Minji admitted. "After I finished the signal, I could barely move. I just lay in my shelter thinking about my family. I thought about all the things I wanted to do but never would." Cena leaned forward. "But you didn't give up. Even when you thought you might die, you still created that signal. You still fought. That's incredible courage." "I was so scared," Minji said quietly. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," Cena told her. "It's doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. You showed real courage out there." A doctor came in to check on Minji. The visitor stepped out to give her privacy. The doctor examined her hands and feet carefully. "The hyperbaric therapy is helping," the doctor said. "We're seeing some improvement in blood flow to the affected areas. But I need to be honest with you, Minji. You're definitely going to lose some tissue. Probably 3 toes on your left foot and possibly 2 fingers on your right hand." Minji nodded, trying to process this information. It was better than losing everything. But it was still hard to accept. "Will I be able to work again? In the field?" The doctor paused. "Eventually, yes. You'll need physical therapy and adaptation, but you're young and healthy otherwise. The human body is remarkably adaptable." After the doctor left, the visitors returned. Minji tried to smile, but they could see the news had not been easy. "They're going to have to amputate some of my fingers and toes," she said matter-of-factly. The room went quiet. Then Cena spoke. "That's tough news. Really tough. But you're still here. You're still alive. You'll adapt and overcome this." "How do you know?" Minji asked, not challenging but genuinely wondering. "Because I've seen it," Cena replied. I've met so many people who face setbacks and challenges, people who lost limbs, who faced terrible injuries or illness, and they found ways to move forward. They found new strengths they didn't know they had. You will too. Minji wanted to believe him. She really did. But right now everything felt overwhelming. Sergeant Kim stepped forward. Minji, I've worked with many people in search and rescue who've lost fingers and toes to frostbite. They learn to adapt, some even return to field work. This isn't the end of your career. It's just a new challenge. The visitors stayed a while longer, talking quietly with Minji. They did not try to make everything sound perfect. They acknowledged that recovery would be hard, but they also gave her hope that life would continue, that she could still pursue her dreams even with this injury. When they finally left, Minji lay in her bed feeling strangely comforted. These people, especially Cena, had no obligation to care about her, but they did. They had searched for her. They had visited her. They had offered her hope. Outside in the hallway, Cena spoke with Sergeant Kim and Rodriguez. I want to help her. Beyond just visiting, is there anything I can do? Just being here matters, Kim said, showing that someone cares. That's huge for recovery. I'll come back tomorrow, Cena said, if that's okay with her. They all agreed that was a good plan. As Cena left the hospital that night, he felt good about what they had accomplished. Minji Park was alive. She would face challenges ahead, but she would face them with support. 3 weeks had passed since Minji's rescue. She sat in her hospital room, which had become more comfortable with time. Photos from home decorated the small table beside her bed. Get well cards covered the windowsill. Her mother had been with her for 2 weeks before returning to Seoul, promising to come back soon. The surgery to remove her damaged fingers and toes had happened a week ago. Minji now had bandaged stumps where 2 fingers on her right hand and 3 toes on her left foot used to be. The physical pain was manageable with medication. The emotional pain was harder to treat. She stared at her bandaged hand. She was right-handed. These were the fingers she used to write, to type, to do everything. How would she manage her research equipment now? How would she take notes in the field? Simple tasks that she had never thought about suddenly seemed impossible. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. John Cena entered carrying a small bag. He had visited her 5 times since that first night. Each visit they talked a bit more. The first visit had been awkward, formal. Now they spoke like friends. Hey Minji, Cena said with a warm smile. How are you feeling today? Better physically, Minji answered honestly. But I had a hard night. Lots of thinking. Cena pulled a chair close to her bed. Want to talk about it? Minji gestured at her bandaged hand. I keep wondering how I'm going to do my job. Field research requires so much manual work. Taking samples, recording data, operating equipment. What if I can't do it anymore? Cena nodded, listening carefully. That's a real fear. Valid concern. But can I tell you something? Yes. I've spent a lot of time with military personnel. I've met soldiers who lost limbs, who faced injuries that completely changed their lives. And you know what I learned from them? The human brain is amazing at adaptation. Right now you can't imagine how you'll manage. But 6 months from now you'll find ways. Your brain will rewire itself. You'll develop new techniques. But what if I can't do field work anymore? Minji's voice cracked slightly. Then you'll find a different way to contribute to climate research, Cena said gently. Maybe you'll do more analysis work. Maybe you'll train other researchers. Maybe you'll discover a new passion. The point is, this injury doesn't define your entire future. It's just one chapter in your story. Minji wiped her eyes. I feel weak for being upset about this. I should just be grateful I'm alive. No, Cena said firmly. You're allowed to grieve what you lost. You can be grateful for surviving and also sad about your injury. Both feelings are valid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Cena reached into his bag. I brought you something. A friend of mine is a physical therapist who specializes in hand injuries. She works with people who've lost fingers. She sent you some information about prosthetics and adaptation techniques. He handed Minji a folder full of materials. She flipped through pages showing specialized gloves, prosthetic attachments, and case studies of people who had returned to active careers after similar injuries. There's a researcher in there. Cena pointed at one of the case studies. She lost 3 fingers to frostbite. Now she leads expeditions in Antarctica. She developed her own modified equipment. Minji read the case study carefully. The researcher, Dr. Sarah Chen, had faced the same fears and doubts. But she had found solutions. She had adapted. She had continued her career. "Thank you," Minji said, clutching the folder. "This helps, really." Over the next few days, Minji's mood improved. She started working with an occupational therapist, learning new ways to do basic tasks. She practiced writing with her remaining fingers. She learned to type differently. Each small success built her confidence. Her research team visited regularly. Dr. Thompson, the team leader, brought news about their projects. "We're not replacing you," he told her firmly. "We're waiting for you to heal and come back. Your position is secure." "But what if I can't do field work anymore?" Minji asked. "Then we'll find work you can do," Dr. Thompson replied. "You're a brilliant researcher, Minji. Your value isn't just in your ability to drill ice samples. It's in your mind, your insights, your dedication. Those things didn't change." The story of Minji's rescue had spread through news outlets. The image of the famous celebrity helping to rescue a stranded researcher captured people's imagination. News crews wanted interviews. Social media exploded with supportive messages. Minji agreed to one interview with a local news station. She wanted to thank everyone who had helped her and to raise awareness about field research safety. During the interview, the reporter asked her about the moment she decided to create the SOS signal. "I was lying in my shelter, barely able to move," Minji explained. "I knew I might die out there, but I also knew I had one chance. The weather had cleared a little bit. I had materials I could use. So I forced myself to get up and create the signal. It took everything I had left, but I did it." "What was going through your mind while you worked?" "I thought about my family, my research team, all the people who cared about me. I couldn't let them down. I couldn't give up when they believed in me." The reporter then asked about John Cena's involvement in her rescue. Minji smiled. "John was part of the search team that found me. He didn't have to be there. He could have just done his USO visit and left. But he chose to help search for a stranger. That says everything about his character." The interview aired that evening. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from around the world. People shared their own survival stories. Others shared stories of overcoming injuries and setbacks. Minji realized her experience had touched something in many people. John Cena watched the interview from his hotel room. He felt proud of Minji. She had handled the interview with grace and honesty. She had turned her traumatic experience into something that inspired others. He visited her again the next day. "You did great in that interview," he told her. "It felt good to talk about it," Minji admitted. "To acknowledge what happened and how I'm feeling about it." "That's healthy," Cena said. "Bottling things up doesn't help anyone." They talked about the future. Minji had started thinking about safety improvements for researchers working in remote areas. "What happened to me could happen to anyone," she said. "We need better emergency protocols, better tracking systems, maybe better equipment." "You should write about that," Cena encouraged. "Your experience gives you authority. People will listen to you." "Maybe I will," Minji said thoughtfully. 4 weeks after her rescue, Minji was discharged from the hospital. She could walk with a modified shoe that accommodated her missing toes. Her hand had healed enough to remove the bandages. The sight of her missing fingers was still jarring, but she was getting used to it. Her research team threw a small welcome party at their lab. Everyone hugged her carefully. They had decorated the space with balloons and a banner that read, "Welcome back, Minji." Dr. Thompson gave a short speech. "Minji, we're so grateful you're here. Your courage and determination inspired all of us. We promise to support you in any way you need as you continue your recovery and return to work. Minji felt tears in her eyes, but they were good tears. She looked around at her colleagues, her friends. They genuinely cared about her. This was her team, her family in Alaska. Over the next few months, Minji worked hard on her rehabilitation. The physical therapy was difficult but effective. She learned to do her job with adaptations. She developed new techniques for handling equipment. She designed modifications to some tools to make them easier to use with fewer fingers. She also started writing about field research safety. Her first article, published in a scientific journal, detailed her experience and proposed improvements to emergency protocols. The article gained attention in the research community. Other organizations started reviewing their safety procedures. 6 months after her rescue, Minji returned to fieldwork. Not on the frozen lake where she had nearly died, but on a different research site with more safety measures in place. She worked as part of a team this time, never alone. She carried upgraded emergency equipment. She checked in via satellite phone every few hours. The first day back in the field was emotional. Minji felt nervous as she put on her winter gear. But once she started working, taking measurements and collecting samples, everything felt right. This was where she belonged. This was her calling. Her team leader, watching her work, smiled. "You've still got it, Minji. You're going to be fine." Cena kept in touch with Minji through text messages and occasional video calls. He was genuinely interested in her recovery and her return to work. Their friendship, born from that desperate search on the ice, had grown into something meaningful. "I'm back in the field," Minji texted him one day, including a photo of herself in full winter gear, smiling. "That's amazing. I knew you would do it," he replied. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You always had it in you. You just needed time to find your new normal." Minji kept the photo from that first day back in the field on her desk at the lab. She also kept a small memento from her rescue, a piece of the dark storage bag she had used to create the SOS signal. She kept it as a reminder of her lowest moment and how she had found the strength to keep fighting. A year after the incident, Minji was invited to speak at a conference on field research safety. She stood on stage, looking out at hundreds of fellow researchers. She told her story honestly, including the fear, the pain, and the uncertainty of recovery. "I lost fingers and toes to frostbite," she said, holding up her hand to the audience. "But I gained something too. I gained a deeper understanding of human resilience. I learned that we're capable of more than we think we are. And I learned that asking for help, accepting support, and adapting to new circumstances isn't weakness. It's wisdom." The audience gave her a standing ovation. After her speech, dozens of people approached her to share their own stories or to thank her for her honesty. One young researcher, barely out of graduate school, told Minji, "I was thinking about quitting after I got injured last year, but hearing your story makes me want to keep going. Thank you." Minji hugged her. "Don't give up. Adapt. Overcome. Find your way forward." That night, Minji sat in her hotel room and reflected on the past year. It had been the hardest year of her life. She had faced death, survived, lost parts of her body, struggled with grief and fear, and worked incredibly hard to rebuild her life and career. But she had done it. She was doing it. She was still a researcher. She was still contributing to important climate science work. She was still herself, just a slightly different version. She looked at a photo on her phone. It showed her with John, Cena, and the search team at the hospital, taken a few weeks after her rescue. Everyone in the photo was smiling, relieved and happy. Minji smiled too. That day on the ice had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. It had taken things from her but also given her things. It had shown her the kindness of strangers, the power of determination, and the importance of never giving up. She picked up her phone and sent one more message to Cena. Thank you for being there when I needed help. Thank you for your continued friendship. You helped save my life that day, but you also helped save my future in the months after. I'll never forget that. His reply came quickly. You saved yourself, Minji. I just had the privilege of being part of your story. Keep doing amazing things. The world needs people like you. Minji put down her phone and looked out the window at the night sky. Tomorrow she would return to Alaska, to her lab, to her work. She would continue researching climate change, continue contributing to science, continue living her life. She had etched an SOS into the ice when she thought all hope was lost. Help had come just in time. But the real rescue, she now understood, was the one she had performed on herself. She had refused to give up. She had fought for every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of life. And she would keep fighting, keep adapting, keep moving forward. Because that was what survivors did. They survived and then they thrived.